All right, ready? And we're looking at the external ear, which is the entire structure is called the auricle. We have the helix here, scaphoid fossa here, antihelix here, into the concha, into the external auditory meatus. This is the tragus, this is the antitragus, and this is the earlobe or lobule. We move into the external ear canal. External ear, the ear canal is going to come in and vibrate the tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane is going to have a hookup to malleus, which is going to hook up to incus. Malleus has a ball on the end. Incus is an anvil. Incus is going to hook up to stapes. Stapes is going to hook into the oval window, which is going to stimulate the cochlea. Cochlea is this structure here, which is lined with little hair cells. Vibration of those cochlear hair cells are going to stimulate the cochlear nerve. In the middle ear, so we have the external ear from here to here. Middle ear is malleus, incus, and stapes, tympanic membrane. We have this let-off valve from the middle ear called the eustachian tube or the auditory tube. Above the auditory tube is this muscle here called tensor tympani. Below the auditory tube is the tensor villi palatini. So we've got tensor tympani, auditory tube, tensor villi palatini. Malleus, incus, stapes. Now we get into the inner ear. The inner ear is composed of the cochlea and the cochlear nerve and the vestibular apparatus. The vestibular apparatus is made of 3 semicircular canals, anterior, posterior, and lateral, orientated in each of the 3 planes of movement. The semicircular canals are actually full of endolymph. Endolymph is surrounded by membranous labyrinth, and then you have perilymph. Perilymph is going to be surrounded by bony labyrinth. So from the inside out, it goes endolymph, membranous labyrinth, perilymph, bony labyrinth. That's on that one. You have the vestibular nerve and the cochlear nerve or cranial nerve 8. As we look down here on this model, yeah, we'll forget about this. We've got the semicircular canals again, anterior, posterior, lateral. You have the vestibular nerve and the cochlear nerve. On this one you can actually see the cochlea looks like a shell here. The facial nerve is going to be traveling on top of the vestibular cochlear nerve here. Facial nerve is going to be heading out towards the ear. When you get to here, the facial nerve is going to turn and head posteriorly. At this turn we have the geniculate ganglia. Geniculate ganglia contains pseudo-unipolar sensory neurons that are responsible for taste sensation on the anterior 2/3 of the tongue. So facial nerve comes up, hits the geniculate ganglia, and heads posterior. At the geniculate ganglia, it's going to give off this greater petrosal nerve. The greater petrosal nerve is going to travel in the facial hiatus, be joined by the deep petrosal nerve to make the nerve ovidian, or the nerve of the pterygoid canal, which is going to transmit the parasympathetic fibers from the facial nerve and the sympathetic fibers from the carotid plexus to the pterygopalatine ganglia, which we meet in the nasal cavity. So facial nerve, facial nerve, facial nerve, geniculate ganglia, greater petrosal nerve. After the facial nerve turns at the geniculate ganglia, it's going to give off a chordae tympani nerve. The chordae tympani nerve is going to go between malleus and incus, join the lingual nerve, and provide both taste sensation from the anterior 2/3 of the tongue and parasympathetic fibers conveying to the submandibular ganglia, which innervates the salivary glands, submandibular and sublingual.
But not seen. But not seen on here.
But not seen on here. You're not seeing the chordae tympani nerve. You can see that on other models. We do have the cochlea. We've got the vestibular apparatus composed of the semicircular canals. And when we open up here, we've got malleus, incus, and stapes, as well as the tympanic membrane. There may be other models or pictures with the chordae tympani nerve going between malleus and incus here. I think that's it on the ear. Yeah.
What about those on the side?
Oh, this is the auditory tube. Again, that maintains the integrity of the middle ear. Above the auditory tube, used to be called the eustachian tube, is the tensor tympani. Below the auditory tube would be the tensor villi palatini. And any artery that's looping its way through here, we're going to call the internal carotid artery.
Anything on the other side?
There's posterior auricular muscles and auricular nerves here as well. Posterior auricular nerves are branches of the facial nerve that innervate these auricular muscles. Auricular muscles just move the ear, but are not likely to tag those. Good. That's it for the ear. We have gone over everything that is on your final.
Woohoo!
Yay!